You're listening to Maximum Medicine Radio with host Doc Martin. How do you step into your maximum potential? How do you connect your spiritual drive with your physical path? Get ready to meet the maximum you the world needs on Maximum Medicine Radio with Doc Martin now. So, if your thoughts create your reality, and the more I study, I realize I'm beginning to believe it, and physics is starting to show that, then what if you are trapped in a thought form? What if you are trapped in a belief that limits the perspective of your experience? The shamans taught this, and I learned it first reading Don Juan books, gosh, a lot of years ago. And there is an assemblage point. There's a point where your reality is a window to the whole universal experience. And depending on where you set your window determines what you actually see and believe and experience. And one of the key things shamanic teachers show you is you can change the destiny of something. You can change the outcome by changing the belief. So let's not get trapped in thought forms, because we are not as expanded. We then become limited. And right now, the world, the earth, humanity needs every single bit of us wide open, ready to see new things, create new possibilities. So crack that eggshell, open up your window of perception. 2 weeks ago, I came back from a week-long retreat at the Monroe Institute, studying realms of awareness, dimensions we might call them. Bob Monroe calls them focus levels, and really the expansion of consciousness, the different realms you can access, the different experiences you can have when you're willing to leave the reality that the human mind is steeped in. And that's a consensual reality that we all have agreed to as humans on the earth. We've agreed that grass is green and sky is blue. Unless you're Dolly Parton and you sang that song. Do you remember? Grass is blue. Anyway, so what I've been thinking about a lot, and it was stemmed from an experience I had there at this retreat. They played an old video. Bob Monroe studied consciousness, and he had people go into states of heightened awareness, sort of trances, so to speak, using his hemisync system that he developed of having frequencies coming at the brain, allowing the brain to entrain to a frequency consistent with deep, deep meditation. And he called his subjects explorers. And he's written many books, and the Monroe Institute teaches his processes. Well, the thing that captured me the most, that inspired me the most, that moved me the most, is he played a recording where he had one of his subjects who was in a light trance in his research lab, listening to music, and she was exploring different dimensions. And many of his explorers went through experiences like this, as he did, since the late 50s, and he's documented these in his books. People have met other intelligences, and nowadays we call that channeling. So this woman was channeling a high intelligence being. And I don't know if it was somebody who was previously human. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. And so this intelligence told Bob, you're going to meet another soul, and I'm paraphrasing, but you will be able to help them. So even if it, basically if it feels weird, don't worry about it. Go with the flow. You're going to be able to help them. So the subject, her name was Rosie, was in trance and she channeled this intelligence that told Bob, you can help. I'm counting on you helping. And all of a sudden, Rosie is channeling a young boy named Patrick. And um, Patrick is a soul, and he tells that he's crying as she's channeling him. He's sobbing, and he was on a ship, and there was an explosion, and he's in the water, and he's holding on to a piece of debris, and it's dark, and he's cold, and he's scared, and he's afraid of sharks, and he could not see outside of his window of perception. His belief was that he had been in the water 12 hours, that he was freezing, that he was cold, it was dark, and all he wanted to do was see his mom and dad. And all he wanted to do was hope that somebody rescued him. Well, as Rosie is channeling this, the kid is sobbing, and I'm done for. I am crying. I can feel the pain of this soul stuck. And nowadays we might call it limbo. We might call it purgatory. I don't believe there's heaven and hell, by the way. But stuck in this space of no expansion, stuck in this space of only seeing darkness, only seeing pain, only seeing the cold. And that's what nowadays I would call a thought form. And I see thought forms, and we collectively share a whole lot of them. In fact, collectively, the craziness in our country is because we hold certain thought forms. And that thought form to me is like being inside an egg, but the shell is pretty brittle and you can't see past it. And you can knock on it and it doesn't budge. And so back to the story. And what's interesting is Bob never felt sorry for the young man. He never said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Don't you know, we can help you see something different." He never invalidated his experience. He never victimized the young man. And I'm sure it's because Bob knew this soul has so much more to see. There are so many more dimensions. And this soul is not trapped. We just have to help him see that he's not trapped. And of course, I'm assuming that's all going through Bob's mind. But Bob, being totally chill, as he was in every video we heard, he said to the young man, "I'm here to help." And the kid's crying got better, started to ease up. He could breathe again. And he said, "Are you telling me I'm dead?" And Bob he didn't buy into this idea that dead is final. So he didn't say, "Yeah, you're dead, kid. Sorry, but you're dead." What he then did when the kid was able to breathe and talk better was say, where's your ship from? Well, it was from the coast of Scotland. And what year did you sail? 1820. I see. And the kid thought he'd been in the water 12 hours. So here's a soul that experienced a trauma in 1820 that's being accessed in Bob's research experiments, channeling through Rosie beyond time and space. And that's the incredible power of consciousness. And as we know, remote viewing and telepathy and translocation and all those things. So anyway, Bob said to him, "I'm here to help." And then he said to the kid, "I want you to look up." And as the kid looked up, he was able, my interpretations, he was able to shift his reality. And the kid said, I see a hand. And then the kid said, I see my mother and father. And then all of a sudden, the kid was in bliss, in joy. You could feel the light. You could feel the crack of the eggshell. And that's what, well, let me just finish up. That moved me so much. And I thought about the souls that are stuck, that haven't fully crossed over. Now, you can say crossover is go over the rainbow bridge. You can say go to the light. But after I took this week retreat, I'm going to say the crossing over is opening yourself, your awareness, your consciousness that exists beyond your death, beyond your physical form. And the crossing over is opening to that pure expansion, that eternal, never-ending, unlimited expansion. And so this kid crossed over. And I was so moved by the power of that, of the souls that can be saved by helping them shift their thought forms. Now, of course, we've got a corollary in live people, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I decided that I'm going to explore this more, and I'm going to learn more from the Monroe Institute. They are a well-seasoned, beautifully orchestrated, superiorly taught elements that I experienced in 1 week retreat. They have many, many retreats, many experiences. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to learn how to help souls cross over. I'm a physician. I've always cared about the human journey in physical life. Well, I'm going to expand that and I'm going to help the bigger journey, the journey of consciousness to full awareness and full expansion. And I'm really excited about that. But you know, the Monroe Institute's so busy, it takes a year to get back in. Isn't that wild? That just shows how powerful, how many people want to learn more and more. So bring that to today's world. I look around and I see the factions in our country. I see the fracturing of our unity. And I know it's because thought forms are deeply held. The us versus them, this is good, this is bad. And I thought, how do I crack those thought forms? How can I assist humanity? And my teacher gently said, I got him. He didn't have to be chastising. I got him. He said, you be the best self you can be. That's powerful, right? Simple, but powerful. It's not me to change everybody. It's me to change myself. And then I'll use my shamanic energy terms here. And when I change my energy field, when it's expanded, when it's filled with possibility, when it's open, then I actually set up resonance fields around me. I change my microcosm, and that microcosm expands into other microcosms, and I contribute to the shift in the macro. I know that. It's just hard when you want such big outcomes to stop and say, just do what seems little. It's not little to change yourself. I see the power of being trapped in thought forms, and let's say limiting beliefs, let's say ability to perceive, let's say willingness to change your thinking, I see that play a powerful role in whether people are willing to heal. There are people who believe they have an illness because their mother had it or their father had it, therefore they must have it. And there's no getting past it. And if you are diagnosed with cancer, if you think this is the end, and you start to see it as limited, as pain, as diminished, as you will get exactly that. And the people who, and I've always been aggravated as an internal medicine physician, actually only up until recently, aggravated with oncologists, cancer docs, because they never give a person the statistics. And sometimes people want that. And they never give them a prognosis, which means how much time left. And it used to really seriously piss me off because people would come to me and I was asked to fill in the blanks. But I'm seeing it differently now. In fact, very differently. If I paint the statistics, that then is viewed as fact, and that then puts a tight eggshell around the person that this is the only way it's going to go. And I know enough now with everything I've studied and everything I've tried to learn that that is a trap, that is a limiting belief, and in the big scheme does not help. So where I used to be aggravated, now I say, well, there are statistics, but you are strong, you are capable, you have good intention, you have a goal, you want to see your grandson graduate from high school. Whatever it is I need to say, you can beat this. This is a physical change that's happening, and you can overcome it. So I've worked hard at not putting out facts as thought forms for people to get trapped in. The other place that I really have started to see a new way, and I'm evolving. I'm getting to be a better doc as I learn more things. When I look back, maybe I wasn't so great. If I had these, for example, a patient will say to me, I'm not taking that medicine. I don't want to take medicine. And I look at the cholesterol and it's through the roof. And all the science says this is a heart attack waiting to happen. Or the person's sugar is high and they say, I don't want to. I don't like medicine. I've learned now that I'll say, here's how, instead of here's the risks, because that's kind of a negative. Here is how you can avoid problems when your sugars are better. Here's how you can step into a more healthy, long-lived pathway. But I also know in the back, in my heart of hearts, the back of my mind, how am I going to say if this person's going to live 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 50? A person has their own soul journey. And even if I see a rocky road ahead, if I'm looking at the road of physical medicine in the scientific world, I know there's a very strong spiritual overlay. I know this. And maybe this person, when they said, I'm not going to do it, maybe they've figured out, even if it's subconscious, a way to make it through. And maybe it doesn't need medicine. So I find myself in a quandary because as a doctor, I have to follow medical standards. I don't want to get into legal trouble. I also want to do what I believe science works. There are many, many things that science does spectacularly, but I don't want to shut down the soul journey. So I'm learning in my new phase. It's been going on a couple years now, but it's a new phase of how to be a good healer, how to hold all of these possibilities and explain the science, educate, guide, encourage. I mean, the truth is, people's health is better when their sugars are normal. I mean, if a person's not going to take diabetic medicine, I am probably going to push hard that they do so. Because the truth is, most people don't change their diet and they don't exercise. Even if you tell them, you don't have to take medicine, but here's what's free and you can do it. It's hard after a lifetime of the American style of living to change it. It's hard to have that motivation to start eating totally differently. So I do push for medicine because I know, and I'll say, do you think you can do this? Do you think you can change this? It's really good if you could. And if they can't, well, let's take these medicines to get your sugars down while you work on that. But I also know, I also believe a soul's going to take a path that was decided by that soul at the beginning of its life, physical life, of this lifetime. I believe that the soul is eternal. That's consciousness. And I believe that whatever's supposed to happen in this lifetime, even if it looks ugly, will have effects around with his person's family, friends, with their own awakening. And sometimes bad events actually have silver linings. So, yes, I'm going to help you get out of thought forms. And I'm going to try my darndest not to put a new eggshell around you. And I'm going to use my own inner changes and intention to radiate only expanded things and trust that that's going to shift the macro and trust that it's going to help the evolution of humanity. So one last thought before we close off here. What I also saw in this retreat is that everybody had their own experience. And everybody, the teachers were phenomenal, phenomenal. They allowed every experience. Even when one of my classmates was seeing demons, and part of me was going, got to be kidding. You're bringing black magic juju into this room? Yuck. But shadow side, at the beginning of the retreat, shadow side was bubbling up big time, including mine. Then that all kind of calmed down. But the teachers were allowing everybody their experience, no judgment. They were doing way better than I was doing, truthfully. And then I remembered, or maybe reflected after I got home, you are entitled to your own reality. That is absolutely yours. You can have it. In fact, you are sovereign. It is your right. It is by spiritual law that you have that. You have your energy field. It is yours alone, and you direct it. But on the other hand, along with that comes responsibility. If you are in charge of it, you're entitled to it. then you take responsibility for the outcome. So then let's look at it a different way. You have the power to change that. Your thoughts do change your reality. So you get to decide, are you trapped in the cold, dark ocean, clinging on to a piece of wood, petrified of the sharks coming, crying and crying and crying? Or can you look through a different window of perception? Can you, as Don Juan taught, change your assemblage point? Can you look up and see it differently? And remember how powerful and expanded and alive and perfectly eternal you really are. Because that's the whole goal.
You've been listening to Maximum Medicine Radio with Doc Martin. Tune in next time while the doc talks health, spirituality, and the impact your beliefs have on every part of who you are, body and soul. Doc Martin unpacks the challenges we face as human beings. To learn more about Doc Martin and Maximum Medicine, visit www.sharonmartinmd.com.